Hey everyone, Tankenstein here. In this video, I'll be giving you a complete review of the Pz.Bef.Wg.VI P, otherwise known as the Panzerbefehlswagen VI P. This is a rank 4 German heavy tank with a BR of 5.7, and it costs 6,090 GE when not on sale. I'll go over its stats, how it plays, its strengths and weaknesses, give you some ratings and how it performs, and then give my final recommendation for what I think if you should purchase this vehicle or not. As always, please subscribe if you like more reviews, guides, history videos, and giveaways, but either way, let's get into the video. So I'll place its stats here on the left side of the screen in order to expedite the video slightly. A good frame of reference is to imagine that the Panzerbefehlswagen VI P is essentially a Tiger 1 with a different chassis and engine configuration. As such, the best tanks to compare this to are the Tiger 1H, the E, and the VK4501 P, of which this vehicle is an up-armored version. That said, let's get into this vehicle's role and how it plays. Put simply, the Panzerbefehlswagen VI P is a breakthrough heavy tank with a slight side role of heavy sniper, depending on how much of an up tier that you find yourself in. It takes the roles of the standard Tiger 1 and even the VK4501 P and makes it extreme. This is a far less balanced vehicle compared to the Tiger 1, sacrificing speed and maneuverability for frontal armor. The Befehlswagen has a weaker engine than the other Tiger 1s, thinner tracks than the Tiger 1H and E, and also is much heavier, with the frontal armor being extremely heavy, leading this to be the heaviest of all the Tiger 1s, sitting at 60 tons even. These factors lead it to be an impressively unmaneuverable vehicle, at least when compared to the other Tigers. But while it is fairly slow, it is extremely powerful at the front, especially in a down tier. When compared with its good cannon, you can reliably be a frontline tank through 6.0 or even 6.3 BR matches, though you may want to consider sniping at 6.3 BR, with it almost being necessary at 6.7 BR total up tier matches. Not all is lost with speed, however, as the Befehlswagen Tiger has a nearly 30 km/h reverse speed, which is one of the fastest in game, courtesy of its hybrid electric engine / transmission layout, meaning that you can reverse behind cover quickly, making it an effective shoot and scoot tank. It also allows you to reverse your tank quickly while facing the enemy with your powerful frontal hull arm, all while taking reprisal shots with your powerful 88mm KWK-36 cannon. This ability starts to diminish, however, at 6.3 BR, and especially beyond that, as the Befehlswagen VI P will encounter not only stronger cannons firing conventional ammo, but also post-World War II tanks that fire more modern ammunition, like APDS and Heat FS, both of which will have no issue firing through the 200+ of frontal hull armor. As stated earlier, 6.3 BR and beyond is where you'll want to begin considering using this vehicle as a sniper. The other issue is that at only 165mm max with its APCBC shell, dropping to just 117mm of pen at 500 meters and 30 degrees, the KWK-36 on the Tiger 1 will have a difficult time sniping in up tiers because it will oftentimes not pen heavier or more heavily sloped enemy tanks that are at any distances above about a half kilometer. The APCR offers better pen at 143mm of pen at 30 degrees and 500 meters, or 211mm of pen at 0 degrees and 10 meters, but APCR are notoriously poor with post-pen damage and ricochet very easily, especially compared to APCBC. In this regard, the Befehlswagen VI P is not incredibly up-tierable, as both its armor and main cannon have a relatively short shelf life compared to the superior designs of the Panther and Tiger II. Worst yet is that starting at around 6.3 BR, the very thing that makes, or at least made, the Befehlswagen VI P so great, its frontal armor, becomes a detriment, as the added weight slows the vehicle down tremendously, all while doing nothing to protect it versus shells that don't care about its formerly high frontal armor. Aside from this, however, regardless of your BR, it is incredibly important to do your best to hide the frontal hull armor corner weak spots, as these are normally armored at only 82mm thick, can be penned by even a 75mm M4 Sherman. With all that said, let's get to its strengths and weaknesses. And for its strengths, it has an extremely powerful frontal hull armor and strengthened rear turret armor. Secondly, it has a very good cannon. The KWK-88 cannon on all Tiger 1 tanks is excellent, and while it does begin to lose a little bit of its bite versus many 6.0 BR tanks, it is still incredibly accurate and potent enough to knock out most tanks with one hit. It also features APCR for those extra difficult shots. Third, much like the VK4501 P that this is based on, the Panzerbefehlswagen VI P also features a hybrid electric transmission, making it quite fast in reverse, despite its poor forward speed. Reverse top speed is 28.7 km/h. This is extra useful as the frontal hull armor is extremely powerful, so you can oftentimes reverse out of danger while still facing the enemy to provide maximum protection. And fourth, being that this is an unusual variant of the Tiger, and one that looks very similar to the lesser armored VK4501 P, some people might think that you still have the standard 102mm of armor at the front of your hull, when in reality you have twice that amount, making it so that people waste shots on you. And finally, much like any other premium vehicle, this does have good RP and SL boosters, which is extra important, especially because if you get hit a lot with this thing, you will get a ton of SL and RP, being that bounce shots equals, well, SL and RP. And now for its weaknesses. First, it is extremely slow. It's actually the slowest of all Tiger tanks in game, regardless of if it's a Tiger 1 or a Tiger 2. Second, it has poor turret traverse speed. It has one of the slowest turret traverses in game, with an RB range going from 5.25 to 7.5 degrees per second, depending on crew skill. Third, it has thin tracks and lower power than even the VK4501 P, which makes this a poor performer in soft ground. Fourth, it has huge weak spots in the front of the hull despite having massively increased armor. An enemy could simply shoot the frontal corners of the hull and annihilate you. Much the same goes for the large MG port on the front of the hull as well. Fifth, it lacks a turret-mounted MG, so air defense is largely a moot point with this vehicle. And finally, while it is potent, and while this variant of the Tiger I does have APCR, the KWK-36 lacks the staying power of the more advanced German cannons, such as the 75mm KWK-42 on the Panther tanks that has nearly 200mm of armor pen with APCBC ammunition, which itself is not too far off from the 211mm of armor pen with the Tiger I's APCR, as well as the King Tiger's 88mm KWK-43 cannon. Of all three of those cannons, the Tiger I's KWK-36 up tiers the worst, and by a pretty good amount. And now for my final overview, ratings, and recommendation on if you should buy this vehicle or not. First, I'll just say that this is a heavy tank lover's dream if you love the concept of breakthrough tanks and if you don't get up tiered. If speed is not your concern and you like the general gameplay of the Tiger I tanks, this can be your favorite tank. If you do like a more balanced approach, such as with a regular Tiger I or more so a Panther tank, you may not be a huge fan of the Befehlswagen VI P. It's not that it's a bad tank, because it can be excellent in many scenarios where most other tanks will fail. It's that if an enemy tank shell can pen through your frontal 200mm of armor, or if they know where your weak spots are, then what is the difference between having 200mm of frontal armor or the standard 102mm of frontal hull armor? The difference is that you're in a worse spot with the Panzerbefehlswagen VI P, being that you will be slowed down tremendously by otherwise useless armor. In a down tier, however, especially if you can hide your weak spots with bushes or cover, the additional frontal armor pays dividends and will allow you to dominate in a way that no other Tiger can. But that said, for ratings, I'd say the Befehlswagen VI P has a 7.5 out of 10 for its cannon, largely due to the fact that it's incredibly accurate and good through about 6.0 or even 6.3 VR, but loses its teeth rather quickly beyond that. For survivability, again, I have to give it a 7.5 out of 10. This is because despite the huge increase in armor at the front of the vehicle, it still suffers from huge weak spots that are present on the PK-4501P, which allows you to totally circumvent the additional armor plate. If someone does hit that armor though, you will be a very difficult tank to kill, unless in an up tier, which is another strike against this vehicle, as its massive amount of armor is still flat and is still easily beatable by Heat FS and APDS. For maneuverability, I give this tank a 3.5 out of 10, and that is rated across the average of all tanks at 5.7. While it is slow to move forward, it accelerates fairly decently on pavement and will oftentimes be able to keep up with other heavy tanks, but only on pavement. Where this vehicle suffers is off-road and when it needs to perform a neutral turn. It has by far the worst power to weight ratio of all Tiger tanks, and has thinner tracks than the standard Tiger I. This is a recipe for disaster, although it does feel that its top speed is artificially limited, as you will reach it fairly quickly on pavement. The only place where the Befehlswagen VI P shines is in reverse, as it can go nearly 30 kilometers per hour, which beats out almost every other tank in game. So overall, considering all of its features, strengths, weaknesses, and so forth, I give the Panzerbefehlswagen VI P a 5.5 out of 10. That is not to say that it is bad, because it isn't, but where it may have shined years ago when it faced weaker tanks, it now suffers. Its armor almost doesn't matter due to the huge weak spots that allow you to circumvent it. When your armor is being hit though, especially in a down tier, this is easily one of the best tanks in the match. You'll just need to stay behind some level of cover if you're on the front lines, largely in an attempt to protect your flanks and to hide your frontal weak spots. If you can do that, you will succeed. If not, then you won't. In all, this is not a very versatile vehicle and can only be played as a breakthrough tank and a heavy sniper, but it doesn't do either of those incredibly well in most instances due to its aforementioned weaknesses. As long as you don't get flanked, you won't need to employ your terrible maneuverability and turret reverse, and as long as you're not in a 0.6 BR plus up tier, your cannons should be able to pen most tanks at most combat ranges. Unfortunately, the success of this vehicle relies on too many factors that are outside of your control to be considered more than average when considering the sum of its faults and virtues. So do I recommend it? Yes, but for those who really like a front heavy vehicle, as it can still be very effective like that, but for those that want something more versatile, I would suggest to look elsewhere, maybe like the RU251, or if you don't mind buying a pack vehicle, the Tiger II SLA. But that said, thanks so much for watching everyone. Please like, comment, subscribe, you know the dealio. But either way, thanks again, and I'll see you all on the other side. Take care, everyone.